So in the previous video, we talked through our vocab and we talked through our little modeling with a picture. And then we said, okay, let's come up with a shortcut. So when we have the same sign like we did here, negatives and negatives, we're going to add the two numbers that we have, or add their absolute values, 8 and 5. The absolute value of -8 is 8. The absolute value of -5 is 5. And then that's 13. We're going to keep the sign. On the bottom one, where we have different signs, when they fight, we had negatives and positives here. My positives and negatives canceled out, so really we can act like we can subtract the absolute value, so we can subtract 12 minus 7 to get 5. So we subtract the absolute values, and we keep the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. So again, we're going to subtract 12 minus 7 to get 5, and then we keep the sign of the number with greater absolute value. 12 has a greater absolute value than 7, and so my answer is going to be positive. And the reason that we have to come up with these shortcuts is because we get to numbers or examples like C where we have -42 and +26, and I surely do not want to draw a mountain with 42 negatives and 26 positives and cancel them out and see how much is left. And so we had to kind of come up with a shortcut to do that. And so when we see -42 and 26, if signs are different, they're going to fight, they're going to go to war. And so we're going to subtract the two the absolute values, 42 minus 26. And when we do, we get 16. And then we're going to keep the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. In this case, -42 has a greater absolute value than 26, so my answer is going to be negative, and I get -16 here. On example letter D, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so that maybe you can see this a little bit better. We've got 30 plus -8. So signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. 30 minus 8 is 22. And I'm going to keep the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. In this case, that's my positive number, positive 30. And so 30 plus -8 is 22. And on my last example here, I've got -17 plus -28. These two things they're gonna be friends. They're not gonna fight. They're gonna be friends because they have the same sign. So if they're the same sign, they're gonna be friends and make a bigger army. We're gonna add their absolute values, 17 plus 28, and get 45. And we're gonna keep the sign that they both had, which is negative. So -17 plus -28 is -45. So one more time to kind of recap: when signs are the same, we add and we keep the sign. When signs are different, we subtract and keep the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. This is what is going to be super important, that you start to, these two rules, that you start to commit to memory and start to really understand before we move on to subtraction.